We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It's Saturday. We had a pretty eventful week, got plenty of shit to talk about, and it's fortuitous that we have somebody along with us on the program that is perfectly capable of talking a lot of shit, and that is Ed. If you're watching on YouTube, he's got this fucking dumb crown. You've had that for like a month. Nobody ever saves this kind of stuff for a month. Anyway, Ed, thanks for coming on the show. We got a lot to
You bet.
talk about, and it's always good to have your help.
I just wanted to remind you, your philosopher king is in the house.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, and it's always helpful for me when I do this show and I have other people on the show, because generally those people are always smarter than me, so I look a lot better. The show's a lot better. So the
Yeah.
more times I can get people on the show, the better. And of course, Ed, I've known for years, and we worked together for years. So this kind of show is probably the easiest show I do, because when I got nothing, you innately know I got nothing, and then you just take over, and it works out pretty well. We got some shit going on this past week, and I'm curious to find out about it. You listed off a bunch of things, and I'm going to give you your choice. Where do you want to start with it?
Well, just because it's fresh in my mind, let's talk about immigration policy. We got a bill, a perfectly good bill that's in the Senate,
Bipartisan.
and bipartisan bill. They've been working on it for a long time, and looked like everything was going swimmingly. And then, of course, Donald Trump calls up some people and says, "No, you can't solve this while I'm still out." That'll give a point to Biden if this gets solved. Right now, Republicans have been doing this since before Obama. There have
Right.
been plans in the works that were perfectly acceptable to deal with the border crisis, but no. And I say crisis because that's how people relate to it. What it comes down to is there is virtually no change between policy between what was going on with Trump and what's going on with Biden. Granted, we're not separating kids from their parents, which they did, and many of them, they were never able to reunite, and some of them were trafficked into adoptions and so forth. That doesn't get talked about much anymore, but it did happen. And
Yeah.
they were putting them in cages with those aluminum blankets and stuff like that. That's not happening either. We actually have a better rate of people being turned back than we did under Trump. We have more agents there. We have everything is going along. The one problem is we have more people coming, and I'm still not convinced that that isn't enhanced somehow or other by oligarchs that want Trump to be president again. What's to stop them from going there and they're spreading around the money for these people to move from all the way from Venezuela through all these countries to Mexico? How are they doing that? Somebody's helping them out for sure. The money's coming from somewhere. That all aside, we have a chance to have some comprehensive immigration reform. Republicans were on board until just a day ago. Mitch McConnell's first one. Well, maybe we can't do this because it'll be a black eye to Trump. He comes right out and says it. Now, I don't know if he did that hoping that people would say, screw that, we want the deal. Maybe he did. He's pretty sharp, even though he freezes every now and then. He's still fairly sharp. He's been able to get his way a lot. Mitt Romney is out there talking shit against Trump. Can't let this happen, that kind of thing. And of course, Trump's losing his mind. That's the background we've got here. We've got a bill, best chance ever to get a bill and get some money down there to deal with the problem in a both a humane and a sensible way. If it doesn't happen, it will never happen.
Yeah, it's funny. This whole obstruction attitude has been going on since, well, certainly during Barack Obama. That's why Barack Obama didn't get as much done as he'd hoped to, because it was a constant blockage by the Republicans. But this is the interesting thing now. The Republicans keep complaining about Joe Biden with open borders. But what we know now is that when he was inaugurated, the day after he was inaugurated, he had a plan for the border, but the Republicans didn't want to hear anything about it. They wanted to complain about it, how Joe Biden's doing nothing, but when he did do something, they wanted to shut it down. And now that we're getting closer to this bipartisan bill, maybe a lot of these people said, okay, yeah, we really got to do something. Let's get it done. And then Donald Trump pipes in and says, no, no, we don't want to make Joe Biden look good. So, like you say, um, these Republicans are choosing instead to make a political decision that would benefit them as opposed to helping people in this country and the immigrants coming across the border. I got to wonder if this isn't going to work against them. It's real easy to say Joe Biden's not doing anything if nobody knows really what's going on. But this is bringing it to light. Joe's got an idea. The Senate's got an idea, but it's the Republicans in the House that are shutting this down. Has it brought enough to light where this strategy doesn't work anymore because people know too much?
I would hope so. The problem is you have a Republican electorate, maybe only 30% of them, maybe 40, might even be more, who believe every word that comes out of Donald Trump's mouth, regardless of how ridiculous it is. And when you're fighting against that, I don't know. All you can do is have more votes so that they don't matter. For one thing that we have an advantage we have, Mike, is that we've been around a while. And I remember when they were talking about health care reform, right? What eventually became Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act, which is more accurate. And the Mitch McConnell picked a Tennessee Republican senator, Bob Corker, to be the lead guy because he was a doctor on their side of negotiating this health care bill. And they did it in good faith, and they were making progress. And then Mitch realized, okay, this is going to be a big win for the Democrats. He pulled Corker and said, no more. We're done. We're not going to negotiate. It's going to be all on them. And of course, Obama got it done with some Republican votes, thankfully, but he got it done. But along the way, he had to drop the public option, which really would have made it different and made it able to service far more people. So what we have now is Obamacare, which does keep insurance companies from denying you claims based on pre-existing conditions and different things like that. There were some good things about it, and certainly there are plans that are somewhat affordable. But I still hear from people, yeah, I've got insurance, but I can't get that operation I need because I can't do the copay. And so we got an imperfect healthcare system when we could have had a very much better one if the Republicans had been interested in achieving that end. They were not. They were only interested in getting power back so they could continue to funnel money to the oligarch masters, which is the only thing the Republican Party cares about now. They don't care about you. You can die in the ditch. They do not care. There is not one of them who cares anymore. Or they would speak up and say, this is a crock. And this is the same thing with immigration. We have plenty of jobs. We have plenty of things for those people to do. We could do a federal housing project to get the homeless off the streets. We could do all of that if we had a Republican Party that was interested in getting things done. They are not. They want to roll the clock back to 1890 when everybody but a few guys were super wealthy and everybody else was slave labor or peons. So that's the Republican Party for you today. So I don't have much hope about this. We'll see.
Yeah. The thing about it is that what's going on now, this wasn't, like you say, brought on by Donald Trump. This has been the course of action for the Republicans for decades, really, certainly through Obama and maybe even before then. They have no plans. They have no interest in accomplishing anything. Their only strategy is to obstruct and to smear whoever their opponent is. We know this because they did that to Hillary Clinton. They did that to Joe Biden in 2020. They're doing it to Joe Biden in 2024. Notice they have not said one word of what they want to do to fix all these things they're whining about. They just want to say, those people are bad, so you better vote for us. That's all they have. And this is why I think come 2024, when they actually get hit by this blue wave, this will be the end of the Republican Party. They've got nowhere to go at that point. It's not like they said, well, we can just tweak some things and come back. No, everything they've fucking done in the last 4 years has failed miserably. And this situation with the border thing, that's going to blow up in their fucking face because now they're exposed.
I hope so. I hope so. Let's take a moment here since I mentioned Bob Corker, the doctor from Tennessee who was working on healthcare. I'm right here in Tennessee, Tennistan, soon to be Gilead, because they just introduced a bill that would make it a crime to transport anyone out of state for an abortion. If a teenage girl's impregnated by her uncle, which
Yeah.
happens a lot,
Yeah.
they would in Tennessee, believe me, or her cousin or her father or whatever. If her mother, her aunt, her grandmother drove her out of state for an abortion, they could both be charged.
Wow.
That's what this bill does. It criminalizes. They call it abortion trafficking, anti-abortion trafficking, because they love to pick up buzzwords that they think their ignorant, stupid, miserable followers are familiar with. I'm surprised they don't throw in CRT just for gravy. But anyway, that's what they're doing. You know, they're doing that. They're trying to reject federal education funds, over $1.3 million in federal education funds. So they don't have to follow federal mandates and they can establish their religious charter schools. Yeah, it will be Gilead before you know it. That's what they're aiming for. And this isn't the only place, but it's the lab. You know,
Right.
I keep telling people Tennessee is the lab. Keep your eye on this because this is where the Christian nationalists and their exploiters, the ones who see how stupid they are and easily led. This is where you'll find them trying stuff out to see how it's going to fly. You'll see it in Arkansas, you'll see it in Oklahoma, you'll see it in Texas, and a goodly portion of the rest of the former Confederate States of America. I knew it. I've always known it all my life that they were just laying low. I mean, the South will rise again was a rallying cry when I was a kid, and it's never changed.
Right.
So don't expect that it ever will. But I just had to put it in there. Keep your eye on Tennessee because this is where they're trying it out before it comes to you.
One of the problems people don't realize, the whole concept of somebody becoming pregnant in a state where it's illegal and go to another state to get the medical care they need. We've had Old Soul on here, and she brings in women, allows them to stay with her so they can get the medical attention they need. But doesn't this open the door? I mean, it's like the idea of taking the constitutional right away from women regarding Roe v. Wade and abortion. Doesn't What I've always said is once they take one constitutional right away, then that should be a signal that they're going to take more. And like what you're talking about in Tennessee, like for example, in Tennessee, marijuana is not legal, right? Or
And no, as a matter of fact, they're talking about medical marijuana is in some cases, but it's very it's not as weak as the recreational. I mean, it's weaker than the recreational variety to begin with,
right.
but they're talking about even tightening that up again. So
Well,
no,
my point is if they can arrest you, if they what they want to do is arrest you to take your own body to a state where it's legal and get abortion, could they not arrest you for somebody saying, I'd like to start a marijuana farm or I'd like to sell marijuana, so I'm going to move out of Tennessee because it's illegal there, and I'm going to move to Minnesota where it's legal. Theoretically, they could arrest you for that too. Anything that somebody is going someplace else in the country to commit what they perceive as a crime, theoretically they could arrest them. And I don't know if people understand how dystopian or draconian that fucking is, but that's restricting people's free movement within a country and holding them accountable for laws that don't apply to them anymore. And it's fucking ridiculous. It's scary.
Oh, it is definitely. Now, see, you've just exposed yourself as a logical thinker. That you see that, I see that, and that there is no difference between those two scenarios, right? Abortion is illegal here. If I go somewhere else and get it, they can't charge me in that state, but they can, if I come back, they can charge me now. But the person who transports me, they can charge. So that's what they're trying to do here. But and I wouldn't be surprised. Remember back in the old days of the South, slavery days, they had guys who were fully employed just going after escaped slaves, because if they could catch them in another state, they could bring them back. I mean,
Right.
it's kind of, it was, you remember the Dred Scott decision. Dred Scott said, "Look, I'm a slave, but I'm now in a free state with my quote master. Shouldn't I be free?" And the Supreme Court, in their wisdom, said, "No, no, you're not free." So, and then people look at that decision and they say, the Supreme Court's a pile of shit and always has been,
Yeah.
because it's
Yeah.
always been political. It was political in that case. It's political now. And that's why everybody wants to get the edge. They want, a couple of extra. They want two of those judges, two judge margins, so that they can do whatever they want. And that's what we got now. We need to look at the Supreme Court, how it's done, term limits. I don't care how we do it, but it's got to be depoliticized, and it's got to be, again, not that it ever was, but it needs to move toward actual jurisprudence and not simple politics, which is where it is now.
And unfortunately, the only way that happens is if in 2024 we get the House, the Senate, and the presidency and get some room in the House and the Senate. That's the only way we get
Yes,
any kind of resolution to the bullshit that's going on in the Supreme Court.
that's right. And, I mean, if we had those, we could, for example, impeach Clarence Thomas, because
Yeah.
you could do it. You could impeach him, you could convict him, you could throw his butt out, and you could probably get Gorsuch for revealing early the decision on Roe
The
v. Wade,
Dobbs
and
division.
the Dobbs decision and other things. They, or maybe that they perjured themselves, some of them, when they were going through the process of becoming a Supreme Court justice. But basically, if you expand the court where it should be, so that it matches the judicial districts, you have that many people, that would do it. We just need to do something, and we really need a code of ethics for them, so that they are not just being bought off, which we can see they are.
Yeah, they are. And you pointed this out before, and maybe we should explain it again. When there were 9 justices appointed in the Supreme Court, that was largely due to the fact that we had 9 districts in the
Correct.
country. We now have 14 districts. So it's
Right.
reasonable to say, okay, if we have 14 districts and we give each Supreme Court justice a district, essentially, we should have 14 Supreme Court justices, which would mean we could, they would call it stacking the Supreme Court, but it really is just updating it to where it should be.
Yeah, with 14, you'd say, well, wouldn't they just deadlock? That's a possibility, but so what? I mean, make them negotiate, or make the Supreme Court, the head justice, make him a tiebreaker, and have 14 others. So there's 50. Should always probably be an even uneven number, but we can deal with that when the time comes. But it should be expanded, absolutely.
I've always said, and this may be unreasonable given the way our system works, if you really want a true and just court in the Supreme Court, there should be an equal number amount of conservatives and Democrats, and one kind of middle person to be that pivot point. Either side is going to have to sell that person to go their way, and then we would have some real compromise and negotiation and some real decisions, as opposed to political decisions, which is exactly the opposite of what we should be getting out of the Supreme Court.
Exactly. And those who follow my Ad Holler troll learned about Lewis Powell and his memorandum that told people how, told the right wing, the money people, how they could take over the country and get whatever they wanted just by getting organized and put their money where their mouth was, so to speak. And we've seen ever since the early 70s that march to the point where now everything is money, and corporations are people, and money is speech. All of that is because money was used to buy politicians. They
Right.
should have to wear those jumpsuits like NASCAR drivers wear with all their donors on them, because it's that bad.
That wouldn't be a bad idea. Now, before we went on, you brought up the Supreme Court regarding the situation with Donald Trump and the 14th Amendment and such. You had
Yeah,
some
right.
thoughts on that? I know people are anxious to hear how this is going to come out, and I don't know that any of us know, but this is going to be a pivot point in this country if they decide for the Colorado Supreme Court. All bets are off. Donald Trump's going to lose his shit.
If they decide, first of all, I'm assuming they're going to weasel
Hmm.
somehow or other. I really do
Yeah,
expect that they'll weasel because they're, as I said, they're bought. These are not jurists. These are hacks. All of the Republicans on there are hacks. Every one of them. Every one of them is a hack.
I
They're
agree.
not, they should never have been there. So
Right.
they will find a way to weasel, and it won't be applied. But if it were, there would be a lot of shouting and screaming and so forth, but we would weather it. I mean, they want, the right wing always threatens violence, but these people are basically cowards. I mean, there's a few of them that like to romp and stomp on occasion, but most of them are basically cowards. There's not going to be a civil war. Um, because here I just saw this the other day. A stand-up comedian did it. That he said that every year they should have a mock face-off between the Proud Boys, whatever, the 3%ers, versus a group of government soldiers, just to see who wins. And he
Yeah.
said, of course, the Proud Boys go on and you ask them, are you going to win? 100%. And then on the other side, there's this one guy sitting in a bunker controlling drones, and he goes, oh, have we started? They're all dead.
Yeah, exactly.
You
Exactly.
know, that's what they don't realize. They think they're going to be fighting a civil war again. No, you're going to be fighting World War III, only it's going to be maybe 10 seconds between they let their Hellfire drones loose on you, and then there's nothing left but a smoking hole in the ground where you used to be. So, no, there will not be a civil war. There will
No.
be a lot of mouthing off, but there will be anyway.
Don't you
But they
think
won't.
don't
They'll
don't
weasel.
don't you think that if the Supreme Court says, yeah, Donald Trump can be taken off the ballot in Colorado, which would essentially mean he could be taken off the ballot in every fucking state, and he's done. Don't you think, as much as they're fighting it now, don't you think the Republicans would have a sigh of relief? Because Donald Trump, they've got to understand that Donald Trump is dragging them down. The only reason they stand with him is because they're afraid of him for some reason. But if the Supreme Court took him out of the equation, I got to believe the Republicans would largely breathe a sigh of relief because they don't know what to fucking do in this thing.
Yeah, quote reasonable. I don't know if
Yeah,
there is any such thing as a reasonable Republican, because
true.
to be a Republican, you have to believe that only a small group of white people should rule everything, and everybody else should be their slaves. That's what a Republican believes now. They didn't
Right.
always believe that. Back in Eisenhower's day, they didn't believe that, but they've come to this place now. So I cannot see even they looking at Trump and thinking, 4 more years of this, 4 more years of Trump versus Nikki Haley, who talks a conservative line, but probably is a much more reasonable person and might
Yeah.
actually be able to beat Joe Biden. I think they probably realize that every time he opens his mouth, when he goes to the rape trial, when he, the damage trial, when he goes there and he continues to malign this woman who he's already on the hook for $5 million, and it's going to be a lot more this time.
Yeah.
I guarantee you, it won't be 10 million. It might be 100 million. It could be, with the antics that he's doing. If they see this, they must realize, and they must realize he's out there going, I'm the guy who got rid of Roe v. Wade. It was
Yeah.
me. It was all me. And the women are going, oh, yeah, yeah.
Well, I should just say too, we're talking about the E. Jean Carroll case.
Right.
And as we're speaking right now, it's going on. We don't have a resolution, but by the time people hear this podcast, we may know exactly how much Donald Trump is going to have to pay. The interesting thing about the E. Jean Carroll case is that they had closing arguments, and Donald Trump showed up, and Donald Trump testified, but he only testified for about 3 minutes. Alina Habba asked him some softball questions, and then basically, as I understand it, the prosecution basically said, "Yeah, that deposition you gave, that shit show, do you stand behind all that shit?" And he goes, "Yeah," which was not the smart fucking move. And then he goes on to say, "Well, I'm just trying to protect myself, my family, and the presidency." This guy did himself no good. And then Alina Habba is giving her closing comments today as we speak. She's probably doing it right now. But during closing arguments in the morning from the prosecution, he got up and walked out like everybody would be intimidated. Oh my God, Donald Trump walked out. He must be angry. What are we going to do now? But he came back for the Alina Habba. So there's some stuff that's going on now that we don't know, but it's going to go to the jury. They could have an answer today. And I don't think Donnie's going to like it.
I don't think he's going to like it either, because like I'm saying, I think the figure will be considerably more than he's expecting it to be.
It
But
almost
then
has to be.
then he'll just use it to fundraise, because that's what he does. That's why he's there today. He's not there because he thinks he can have any effect at all on the outcome of the trial. He's there so he can go out afterward and try to raise some money.
Well, he's going to have a nut to crack before he gets his money from the grifting, because he's going to have to pay that shit. I mean, the $5 million he's already had to put in escrow for his appeal on that first one, and he's going to have to do it again. But the fact of the matter is all through this court case, Donald Trump has done nothing but embarrass himself. His lawyer, Alina Habba, she's embarrassed herself. She's been told to sit down and shut up, essentially. Do you think Alina Habba is on the hook for any, I don't know, culpability for anything that's gone on in this courtroom, or anything that's gone on with Donald Trump prior to the trial? Because she's so fucking stupid. I can't imagine they're not going to do so, at least sanction her.
Maybe she's been threatened. I mean, obviously, she has no grasp on how to introduce evidence at a federal trial, and she just doesn't know the basics. This is essentially what you get when you don't pay your lawyers. Eventually, you have to take those who will, for whatever the notoriety or whatever, will actually work for you. And it's obvious too that a lot of what she does is governed by her client.
Right.
I mean, there's the old saying is, anyone who represents himself has a fool for a client, and this is true. But essentially, he has her along as just window dressing, so that he can say what he wants to say, and it maybe comes out of her mouth. But that's all it is. I don't think Trump's ever taken any lawyer's advice. Do you?
No, I don't. And it's interesting how this all works out, and you got to wonder, with all the failures that have come up by using this strategy, why people keep doing it. He tells lawyers what to say, even though it's not legal, no basis in law. But it's the same thing he's doing with the Republicans, with the border thing and everything else. Donald Trump is dictating to congressmen and women what they should do and shouldn't do, even if it's against their own best interest. And for whatever reason, they fall into the trap and they're willing to do it. That's the thing that's crazy to me. It's okay if you got a strong man who says, okay, you do this. But after you've failed 1 billion times from doing what he said, why would you keep doing it? What Where is the fear? Where is the power that he holds to keep making people make dumb choices when they know they're fucking dumb choices?
Well, remember, Trump is mob.
Yeah, yeah.
He really is. People forget that, but he was hand in hand with the mob for years. He had to be. Roy Cohn, his lawyer, who taught Trump everything he knows, all his sleazy ways and everything. He was a mob lawyer, so they've been tied in forever. So he has all sorts of ways of putting blackmailing people, of threatening people. All of that's going on behind, but mostly he knows he has the the ear of the MAGA 30% or whatever that can turn a local election. And he basically says, if you want to continue as a politician, you have to do what I say, or I'm coming out again and going to label you a rhino or a deep state or whatever it may be. He has that and he uses it. I mean, Mike Johnson, the current Speaker of the House, admits he talks to Trump all the time. I don't think Mitch does. I don't think they exchange many words, but you can still see that Mitch is affected by what Trump wants, because he was all for this solution. Basically that did two things: that got aid to Israel and Ukraine, and also took care of the border. He was all for that, and now suddenly he's not. So even he has to bend a knee to Trump at this point.
Well, you can see how Trump has some influence too, because we saw it from Mitch McConnell and Kevin McCarthy after January 6th. Oh, this is terrible. This is Trump's fault. Even Lindsey Graham said it. And then within days, they spin on a dime and they're saying the exact opposite. I mean, they look foolish doing it, but that just tells you how much power. I'm not saying how much power Donald Trump has, how much power they give Donald Trump. And the bottom line is, when this is all said and done and Donald Trump goes down, they are going to experience what they feared most by the prospect of going against Donald Trump. They're still going to lose their position. They're going to lose their power. They're going to lose their reputation. All they've done here is delay the the uh, uh, the obvious, or delay the inevitable. And I just don't understand the mentality of it. You can't see far enough in advance to know you're fucked when you stick with a losing program. I don't fucking get it.
At this point, I think they feel like they have no choice. It's like you're on
Yeah.
a roller coaster, then the brakes are off. All you can do is hang on and hope for the best, right? You
Right.
hope you can ride it out.
That's about it.
And that's what's going on with them. But then you have to remember too, beginning with Newt Gingrich, the Republican Party started to eliminate, move, get rid of anybody with any integrity or intelligence out of the Republican Party, certainly out of the House. It's like Trump said about Mexico: they're not sending their best. They're sending rapists and drug dealers. That's who's in Congress now. And I read somewhere there's something like, I don't know, a couple of hundred cases against sitting members of Congress right now. They're indicted on various things. Mostly it's stuff like drunk driving,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. Which they may go away eventually, but it's in there, and there's probably some Democrats too, but it's heavy on the Republican side. I just want to point out to people, they keep calling Biden pedo Biden, that kind of stuff. Every time there's that kind of thing comes to light, it's always a Republican, and usually a Republican official, if it's not a Republican pastor. Is one of the two. You
Well,
can figure on it.
and that's the interesting thing about it we're going to take a break here in a minute, but I wanted to bring up Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz went through this whole trafficking pedophile thing and having sex with a 17-year-old girl. It went to the DOJ, and the DOJ basically set it aside and said they're not going to do anything about it. Well, the ethics committee in the House of Representatives picked up Matt Gaetz's thing again, is investigating it, and it sounds like they've got more information and they're going to drop it to the DOJ. People are wondering, why would the Republicans, because it is the Republicans, do it to their very own? And it's kind of what we've talked about. That's what the Republicans do. They eat their young. And it sounds like Matt's in a little trouble here, far more trouble than he was when the DOJ was looking into it.
Boy, I hope so. I saw that too, and I wondered about it, and that was another thing that made me think, wait, maybe the tide's turning a little bit. We had Lauren Boebert with her escapade at the theater, which got out there pretty quick, and so now she's switched districts, trying to get elected in
That'll
a
work.
different district. Yeah, because she knows that she won't win in the one she was in. And then you've got Marjorie Taylor Greene being dissed left and right, which she should be. And she's so identified with Trump, she might as well be in his pocket. I won't say
Yeah.
somewhere else, but at any rate, I'm starting to see that it's the MAGA ones they're starting to see. You're starting to see that they're looking at these people, and hopefully, I'm hoping Jack Smith comes out next week and says, "I'm indicting this as 6 people for insurrection."
Yeah, I hope so too. I just don't know if he's going to do it until after the trial starts or after the trial's over. He wants to keep it clean for, I don't know what's going to happen that. But with Matt Gaetz, it seems to me that Matt Gaetz has ruffled too many feathers in the Republican Party, and they're just out for blood right now. I mean, you remember
Yeah,
when we were going through the Kevin McCarthy thing? Kevin
yeah,
McCarthy walked up in his face and threatened him. He's been threatened by other people. I think as much as he might be MAGA or Republican, he's pissed off too many people, and now he's going to get his comeuppance.
yeah. He reminds me. I mean, or this situation reminds me of that rising star Matthew Cawthorn,
Right,
the
right.
wheelchair bound Republican who um, told some podcast or something that all of these old Republicans were on coke and they have sex orgies and invited him and so forth and that. And he didn't last too long after that.
No, and then you have George Santos, who they
Yeah,
embraced for so long, and finally they had enough and kicked his ass out. So I think Matt Gaetz may be and people will say, well, that will just bring down their majority. Yeah, it will, but how much fucking time is left, and what were they going to do anyway? They're not going to do
right.
anything.
And maybe they're getting tired of having this small group of people tell them what they have to do and
I
putting
would
a
hope so.
torpedo into anything. I mean, these people have to go back and get reelected. And quite frankly, my local representative, Harshbarger, she'll come back, she'll get reelected, even though she hasn't done anything.
Right.
She has collected a fairly good salary, $174,000, call it 175, for 2 years and done nothing. I would
Right.
like that payday. I'd like to go to Washington, do nothing, and collect my money. Which is all she does. She maybe goes and sit in a meeting once in a while, but she doesn't do anything. She'll vote the way they tell her. We could get a monkey to do that.
Yeah, we could definitely get a monkey to do it. I tell you what, Ed, we're going to take a quick break. We got a bunch more shit to talk about, so we'll take a quick break and we will be right back. We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Ed is joining us today. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about. And Ed, we'd be remiss if we don't talk about the past week's primary in New
Yeah.
Hampshire.
Mm-hmm.
Donald Trump beat Nikki Haley by what, 10, 11 points, which
Yeah.
was a surprise because the polls said it would be 20 or 30 points. And of
Right.
course, she came in third place um, in
Is
Iowa. And Nikki Haley is, I always tell people, I said, never go into anything assuming the worst, always assuming the best. So in
Yeah.
Nikki's mind, she's winning,
Yeah.
even though she lost to a caucus and a primary. But she's staying in the race. And this seems to be really fucking with Donald Trump's head. He is not
You
liking
think?
this shit at all. He likes to be in control. He likes people to bow to him. He wants Nikki to just walk away quietly, and she isn't doing it.
Right. Can I do a plug for something? Not
Sure.
mine. It's just, have you ever watched the on FX the TV show Fargo?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's had a mixed bag. I mean, the first 2 episodes, it's all different each time, but it's sort of a meta thing where it always references the film Fargo.
Right.
In first one, Billy Bob Thornton, was an assassin. That was really good one. And then Gene Smart was a head of a crime family. That one was pretty good. The others have been, but this fifth one, you watched Ted Lasso, right?
Right.
Yeah, the girlfriend with the accent so harsh you had to read the subtitles in
Yeah.
order to write. Juno is her name, and she and well, there's a lot of really good people in it, but it's primarily her
John
and
Hamm.
John Hamm. And Hamm is kind of a Trump figure, and she's kind of a Haley figure in my mind. I mean,
Kind
she
of.
is indomitable. She is, just she keeps doing things you don't expect from her, and so forth. It's the best thing I've seen in a while. Some folks may quibble with the ending a little bit, but I thought it was brilliant, the whole thing. But if you're really looking at something that if you will see it in light of Trump and Trump politics and so forth, I think it does a pretty good job of. If you look at John Hamm as the kind of Trump sort of guy, he's kind of a survivalist. What do they call him? Constitutional sheriff, just a really bad guy.
Yeah.
But just really terrible. But I highly recommend it because of the political implications behind it all. And I think you see something of the she. I don't want to spoil anything for anybody because it's that good, but guys who like to beat up women, I think Trump pretty much comes into that. We know that he's
Yeah.
has that disposition. His first wife, Ivana,
Yeah.
testified to that effect, and um, so I think that's what's driving this. He cannot stand that a woman is challenging him. He
I agree.
cannot stand it, and you can see that. You can see the abuser in his eyes, and I think Nikki sees it, and I think she's going for the jugular. And now I would never vote for Nikki Haley because
Yeah.
she is a Republican and she toes the Republican line, so she doesn't get my vote. But if she is going against Trump, she's my friend for a while.
Well, for a while, yeah. I mean, and I
Yeah.
think people have to understand they know that Nikki Haley didn't win Iowa. She didn't win New Hampshire. She's not going to win South Carolina. In fact, there's no sense she's going to win any primary yet. But if she starts to pick up steam and Donald Trump starts going down the shitter, which is distinctly possible, that could change. But more than that, I think she's playing the long game here. I think they were all
Mm-hmm.
playing the long game. They knew they couldn't beat Donald Trump in the primaries, but they know at some point very soon Donald Trump is going to implode, and one of them would become the default nominee. And I think
Right.
Nikki is going to ride that horse as long as she can, waiting for Donald Trump to keel over, get thrown in jail, or something else happening where he won't be the nominee. And I strongly believe that's going to happen. Um, but of course, that's not good enough for Donald Trump. He's trying to game the system again. He's trying to get the Republicans to say, well, just call me the winner. Just call me the winner.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, he's getting a lot of pushback against that because it's basically suggesting that the whole Republican process is bullshit and Donald Trump can pick and choose what he wants to do. And that's not leaving a good taste in the mouth for some Republicans.
Which surprises me in a way
Yeah.
because I thought that's what they were going for.
Yeah.
But they wanted a Trump presidency forever, and at the end of if he won in 2024 and 2028, he'd just say, "I'm not leaving," and keep going.
Right.
I thought that's probably what they were looking for. Although I don't think he'll last that long, whether he's elected or not. But I think Nikki is looking ahead to 2028 for sure. But
Yeah.
at the same time, she has a chance here. But if you have the chance to become the heir apparent by a very good showing against Trump, why wouldn't you do it? And also, suddenly she's getting a lot of Republican money
The
that they
Koch
weren't
brothers.
giving to her before. Yeah, and others, because they're saying smart money goes on Nikki now, dumb money stays on Trump. And Trump is feeling it because what did he say? Anybody who donates to Nikki Haley is dead to me. You're not no longer MAGA, which is that's a big threat, right?
That's a
This
big
is the
threat. First of all, how do you know? And if you do know and you need money, and one of these guys said, Donnie, here's a couple million. Donnie's going to
right.
snap that shit up so fast, your fucking head will spin. Yeah, it's just a
Exactly.
bullshit argument.
It is, but yeah, he's desperate to be handed the torch for sure, and not have to work for it. Now, if Nikki stays in, he's got to spend money in South Carolina. He's got to go to South Carolina and stump, which he probably doesn't mind. He loves getting up there, but every time he opens his mouth now, he starts blaming Nikki Haley for January 6th instead of Nancy Pelosi. He confuses things. He thinks he's running against Obama. The guy is losing it. It's obvious. People are watching it happen in real time. Biden makes a gaffe every now and then. He's a stutterer, so he has to consider things, and he says something maybe wrong here and there, but it ain't like Trump.
No,
It ain't
no,
like
it's not
Trump.
even close.
Trump is just he's losing it big time, and when he gets mad, it's even better.
Yeah, it is. I think there's two reasons why Donald Trump is so upset about this. First and foremost, he's even said it. As long as Nikki's in the race, we got to focus on Nikki, and we don't have time to focus on Biden. And
Yeah.
and we've got to spend money on going against Nikki and not going against Biden. So with that regard, I'm hoping Nikki stays in as long as she possibly can, because they're absolutely right. They've got to focus on Nikki, continue the infighting before they can even address Joe Biden. And while that's happening, Joe Biden is racking up all kinds of wins in every possible way. The other thing is what you brought up before, knowing somebody who's a narcissist. The one thing that triggers any narcissist is somebody disagreeing with them or making them look foolish. That's just too fucking far. They go nuts. And you're right, he doesn't like the idea that somebody is maybe got one up on him, especially especially a woman born of immigrants. Um, just the fact that she only lost by 10% instead of a devastating 30 or 40% is enough to get in Donald Trump's fucking head. And this is bothering him. And the only way he knows how to respond is to be a bully and push back. But that's working against him now. People are seeing this and they go, wait a fucking minute. You don't get to control everything.
Yeah, and you have if you look at Trump, the people who get in his head and stay there are people he considers to be his inferiors who best him. We have Barack Obama to thank for Trump because he humiliated him at the White House Correspondents' Dinner a
Right.
couple of years before he decided to run for president. And that's what made him do it, that to get back at Obama, to get his own back, right?
Right.
And anybody else, any other woman, he always has the nicknames for them, and they're always terrible, but they live in his head. He can't get Nikki Haley out of his head. He's wanting to talk about Nancy Pelosi, but Nikki's there, so he can't get her out of his head. She's got him. She got him where he wants him, and if she will just, I think she knows it now.
Well,
She and all of them laid off of him except Christie, who knew he wasn't going anywhere, right? And Asa
right.
Hutchinson. They went after Trump, but nobody who thought they might have a chance of being vice president. Now she knows she's got nothing to lose. She's going for the throat.
Yeah, and she should have done this a long time ago. Now there are
Yes.
people, Democrats out there that are maybe not as aware or not as educated on who these people are. There's people going, well, I hate Donald Trump, but Nikki's not so bad. You got to be careful not to fall in that trap. We went through the same thing with Liz Cheney. Well, she's not too
Right.
bad, but the fact is she's ultra conservative. She's against abortion. And now people are seeing this polished version up
Yeah.
against this fucking turd of a politician being Donald Trump. And they're saying, well, maybe we could put up with her. What you have to understand about Nikki Haley is she supported Donald Trump from the beginning. She was in his administration. She said that she would pardon him if she became president.
Yeah. She
She is
still says it.
she still says that. And she also is absolutely against abortion. She's all about 6 weeks and then making it illegal. So this woman is not a good candidate, even though she might look smoother than Donald Trump. I don't want Democrats to get sucked into that and saying, well, she might be a good alternative. She's not. She's just a smoother alternative. She's better at it than Donald Trump. But then who the fuck is it?
Well, this is true. And I'm often surprised at politicians that they aren't smarter than they are. Uh,
Me too.
you, People should realize by now it's the swing voters who elect presidents. And if Nikki Haley came out and said, I'm a Republican, but this 6 weeks limit on abortion, that's insane. Just make the fetus, once the fetus becomes viable, then you don't do abortion. That's a good middle ground. She could do that. So
Yeah.
every woman who hates Trump would be on her side immediately.
Right.
And women who go, well, that's a reasonable position. And if she would just kind of move to the center right now and push back against Trump, point out that he has no policies, he has no idea about how to govern, there is nothing that he wants to do. She has policies. All
Yeah.
she has to do is articulate them, and all he can do is blah, 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 which is what he does.
Booga
But
booga. Yeah, that's good, Don.
exactly, he's just got to, oh, the terrible people are coming for you, and I'm in the way. That's all he's got. That's it. And so, what was it? 53,000 votes or something elected Biden last time. I mean,
Right.
when you look at the districts and the electoral college and all that, so that's not a lot.
No.
She could do it. She could take him out if she would just be a candidate and sell policies and point out that he has none and that he's essentially a dick and has been all along.
Yeah.
You have to go against your own party somewhat to do that. But I mean, what's left if you don't? You don't have a party. But I have to remind people every time that the Republican Party last time did not have a platform. They
No.
did not have a platform. For the first time in the history of the country, a major political party did not have a platform because Donald Trump had nothing.
Right.
I mean, the candidate always determines what the platform is going to be to a large, and he had nothing. He
Right.
could not articulate anything. It's just whatever I want to do.
I've said all along that I don't think Donald Trump will be the nominee, and that's just looking at the facts and logic and all the shit he has to deal with, his age, his mental acuity, his physical condition. This is all going to bury him ultimately, and I don't think it's going to take that long to do it because he's on the decline and it looks to be going pretty fast. Now, that said, I would almost prefer Donald Trump being the candidate than Nikki Haley or somebody more reasonable, because if Donald Trump is the candidate, it'll be so easy to destroy him. I'm not saying they can't beat Haley, because Joe Biden and his staff are pretty, pretty smart, and they'll know how to take her down when they have to take her down if she does, and she's got a lot to be taken down. But I think this whole thing is a lot easier if Donald Trump is the nominee, even though I don't think he'll be there. He just keeps getting worse every day, and he keeps losing votes every day. There's no way. People say, I'm afraid he's going to run and win. Well, even if he does run, winning isn't even a fucking option. He didn't win in 2020. He's done nothing to improve his lot in 2024. He's going to go down even harder. It might be better for the Democratic Party to win bigger against somebody like Donald Trump.
Well, Nikki says that they're hoping that Trump will run. I mean, Trump will be the candidate, and they're right. I mean, she's right because we think he's beatable. Sooner or later, I'm waiting for the Captain Queeg moment. Now, for those who aren't familiar with it, the Caine Mutiny Court Martial is a trial about a mutiny on board a ship and against a captain named Queeg, played by Humphrey Bogart, who is not mentally stable. But he goes in. He's on the witness stand, and he starts telling this story about how he figured out somebody was stealing strawberries, and you just watch him unwind And it's
Yeah.
brilliant piece of acting, but at the same time, it's hard to watch as you watch this mind collapse. It's going to happen to Trump,
You
and
don't think it
it's
already has?
well, yeah, but not quite as dramatically. We need it to be so outrageous. I mean, how funny is it when you see him saying these things to people in interviews and they try to correct him and he just keeps going?
Right.
You know, where he's talking about Barack Obama and they're going, well, you mean Biden? And he keeps on doing it. You know,
Right.
I mean, he's past that point, but I'm waiting for the big one, the one where even Fox News has to say, we can't do this. You
Well,
know, and Fox bears a huge responsibility for Trump in the first place. You
I'll
know,
be
because
hon-
they
I'll
go
be
ahead.
honest with you. I think MSNBC and CNN and the left side media bear some responsibility for Donald Trump even being president, for putting him on TV and giving him legitimacy. I think the entire media
Yeah,
is culpable for Donald Trump being president.
absolutely. But the Trump supporters don't watch MSNBC or
True.
CNN. They watch Fox. And
Independents do
every,
though. Independents
yeah,
do. That's where the
independents
problem
do.
is.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. That's who elects presidents is independents.
Right.
I
Right.
mean, you know, I'm a dyed-in-the-wool Democrat. You know, I voted for a Republican in Minnesota for governor, Arnie Carlson.
He
I
was actually
regretted
good
it.
though. He was not.
He was a decent guy. He lost me when he dealt with the Hormel strike, sending in
Yeah.
the
True.
troops. I said,
True.
"Oh, Arnie, you just lost me. It's too bad." But otherwise, he was pretty moderate Republican.
Right.
We actually had those in Minnesota at one time.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think we're watching the demise of Donald Trump, and I think that implosion that you're talking about, the big one where nobody can deny it, it's definitely coming, and it's coming for a lot of reasons. We've got the Jean Carroll case.
Right.
I mean, if the Supreme Court comes out in favor of the Colorado Supreme Court, all bets are off. He's out of the race essentially, and he's going to go, as they used to say, buck wild. He's going to get nuts because here's a narcissist who's put in a corner, and this always happens with narcissists. They finally get into a corner and they can't even conceive a way out. So they just freak the fuck out first and then they run because they're cowards. And that's coming pretty quick. I think it's coming quicker than a lot of people think at this point because we see the deterioration and it's not looking good for Donald Trump. And there's a lot of bad shit coming his way over the next week to 10 days.
Let's jump back on that Supreme Court case on the 14th Amendment. By the way, a number of people are saying, I mean, these are actual legal scholars, not hacks, is if you're going to call yourself an originalist, which I believe all of the current
Republicans?
conservative just
Yeah.
yeah the conservatives on the court consider themselves to be originalists in that it says what it says and it's always meant that and it's always going to mean that. If you're an originalist, you have to translate that. The 14th Amendment means what it says. If you
Right.
were involved in an insurrection, you cannot be president. Now, in Colorado, a court there determined that he was involved in an insurrection. They ruled on that. Yes, he was. And that hasn't been challenged yet. And they said, based on that, they said, we have to keep him off the ballot. So if the court reads the 14th Amendment, they they can overturn that, I suppose, and say,
Yeah.
well, no, you can't just say he was in an insurrection. I don't know, but they have to interpret the 14th for what it says. And it says, quite simply, if you were involved in an insurrection, you cannot be president.
And the
And
court
you
found
can
he was.
right. So that's what they're dealing with here. They should find in favor. They should say, he's off the ballot. And then there's 8 or 10, maybe more other states that are just waiting to see before they do it. You know, of course,
Right.
Maine already has. But we'll see. I mean, that could be the end of it. And then watch him crumble because then he will realize I'm going to jail and all
And I
my
have no
money
way
is going
out.
to go away. There's no way out. You know,
But
that's what he's hoping for, that he'll get to be president and he can make it go away. but that's not going to happen.
That is the
No.
long shot of all long shot. If that's the only
Yeah.
hope he has, I pity that motherfucker because that ain't going to happen. You said before we started the show that you feel like with Donald Trump, the worm has started to turn, and I tend to agree with
Yeah.
you. And I think coming up in the next week or so, maybe sooner, maybe next couple of days, we are going to get a final decision out of Judge Engeron and Letitia James' lawsuit um, for a lot of money for his pervasive and ridiculous amount of business fraud. Now, Letitia James is asking for $370 million,
Yep.
and it could go higher than that. It could
Yep.
conceivably. When he is hit with that, a lot of people think that he can just file an appeal and he can put this off for 2 years, and that is not the case.
Nope.
He's got to put up a bond in order to appeal it, and
Yep.
that's going to be a problem. And the person who determines what that bond is Judge Engeron, the guy he's been pissing off for the last 3 months.
Yeah. I mean, he could conceivably do half. I mean, that's a chunk of change,
Yeah,
or more.
yeah.
I mean, it's pretty much up to him. And as you say, you poke the lion, you better hope there's a good chain on the lion,
Well,
and there isn't.
well, and people have to understand that he says he's a billionaire, and whether that's
Mm-mm.
true or not, I doubt it. The fact of the matter is Letitia James pointed out in her documentation that Donnie may have a lot of property, but he is cash poor. He doesn't
Yeah.
have a lot of cash. That's why he keeps grifting the Trumplafucks. He's cash poor. So let's say they give him a fine of $370 million. He needs to pay that or at least put up the bond. And if he can't, the only other option is to liquidate properties, Mar-a-Lago, Trump Tower, whatever. And he's going to have to liquidate a lot of it because I'm assuming all of it is pretty well leveraged. There isn't a lot of equity in these things. He needs a certain dollar amount. And if he's got a $50 million building, but only $10 million of equity in it, that's all it's really worth. The other part of this is where it's going to fuck Donald Trump up. He's in receivership. So he doesn't get to sell and negotiate this stuff. The
Right.
receiver can fire sale this stuff just to get it done as expeditiously as possible. So this case can't go well for Donald Trump. He's lost the case already. They're going to determine the fine, and he's going to have to pay it, even if he wants to appeal it. And he doesn't have the fucking money, so everything goes away.
Yeah, and if you look at Trump, I mean, billionaires, your Bezoses and guys like that,
Yeah,
they're not grifting for $7 or $8 million like he was, putting up foreign people in his properties and so forth, and making the Secret Service and other dignitaries stay in his hotels and so forth, and charging them top dollar to stay in his. You're not grifting on the nickel and dime stuff, and that's what he did the whole time he was in office. And that's not a billionaire.
no.
That's a guy who desperately wants to look like one.
Well, a perfect example of that is down in Florida. He's got the Florida legislature, the Republicans down there trying to pass a bill that would get him $5 million to cover his legal fees. I don't even know how you explain that
Yeah.
to the taxpayers of that state. And of course, DeSantis pretty much shut it down. But can you imagine a billionaire needing uh, $5 million to pay his legal fees, which he's already paid close to 100 million in legal fees? That's kind of like you and me being in such dire straits where we go, well, we make our average amount, but we're so broke. Ed, man, could you borrow me $30 so I can pay my light bill? It's really at about that level, and that shows you how desperate he is. He's going to the because I don't care what anybody says. He's pressuring the Republican legislature just like he's pressuring Congress and all these other people. He's trying to game the situation, and the fact is, it's just not working. And he's so desperate, he's looking for an extra $30, any money he can pull in, and that signals horrible desperation on Donald Trump's point.
Yeah, and I think that's echoed by the fact that he stands up and says anybody who gives money to Nikki Haley is, dead to me, or they'll be in mega hell or whatever. It's he's afraid that that money will go to her instead of to him,
Right,
and he's desperate, and I'm pretty sure any day now. I mean, we just had some of his lawyers quit.
right.
Um, and that's because I'm sure they said we're going to need some money, and he said I ain't got it, and they said see you.
Yeah, exactly. And I know that well,
Yeah,
Tacopino quit from the lawsuit. He was the lead lawyer, and he's a dipshit.
right,
But who took over for him? Alina Habba, and
right,
she's proven that she doesn't even know what the fuck she's doing. I mean,
right.
she'll listen to Donald Trump because she doesn't know any better, and she's been a horrible failure in this lawsuit. But more and more people are going to be dropping off. Now they can get out of representing Donald Trump much easier in a lawsuit as opposed to a criminal trial. So some of these fucks, when it comes down to the criminal trial, may be stuck, and
Yeah,
it's
I'm
going
afraid
to
they will
ruin
be.
their careers.
And if it hasn't already, I don't know why. I mean, if you're,
Yeah.
I think I told you I was going to law. I got accepted to law school. Right at the end of college, I decided I better do something to make some money rather than theater. So I applied to law school, got in, and I went to talk to this friend of my girlfriend at the time. I went to talk to a friend of her father's who was the preeminent lawyer in town, a criminal lawyer. And he said, first thing you need to realize is criminals don't have any money. That's why they're criminals.
Right.
Number two, they're all guilty.
Yeah.
So don't go into criminal law. He said, I make a living because they see me as the best. So I get the big buck guys who are the bankers who are grifted money and stuff. They've got some money. That's how I make a living. But he said if you're just doing the everyday guys who are getting picked up by the cops, it's hard to make a living because they got nothing to pay you with.
I
And you can get a lien on their trailer or whatever, but don't go into criminal law because there ain't no money in it.
Right, right. Well, I learned that lesson back when I was younger and I had a recording studio and I was doing radio commercials. And I thought, maybe music's getting hot in the 80s here in Minnesota. Maybe I should do um, uh, sell time to musicians. And I find out the very same thing. They don't have any fucking money. There was no money to be made there. But
No,
I can tell you right now why that girlfriend you had back then, why it didn't
yeah,
work out.
yeah.
Because here's Ed. Ed's decision making is a little questionable because I'm sure he's talking to his girlfriend and he's going, "Well, I could be a lawyer or I could be a radio DJ, and you picked radio DJ. What the
Oh
fuck were
no,
you
it's worse.
thinking?
It was worse than that. It was
Was it?
actor at that time.
Oh, an
Yeah,
actor." She goes, "There's no fucking future here. I'm the hell out of here."
that was pretty much it. No, but the thing is, I actually ultimately made money of both. So I don't know if I'd have been a good lawyer, probably not. But
Well,
I,
now
I
you
did.
probably
But
wouldn't.
I made money as an actor. I made money as a DJ, or rather, a public radio announcer. Yes.
Well, and the fact of the matter is, when you say we made money,
Yeah.
that's subjective because we made money, but selling returning aluminum to the fucking recycling company, you can make money.
I've
It's a
done
matter of
that
how
too.
much money. Yeah, fuck yeah, you do whatever you got to do.
Uh,
So Donald Trump's going to be in a money crunch here, and I think
mhm.
that's why I think this lawsuit is the most devastating thing to him because it takes away everything he identifies himself with: a lot of money, property, and power. And Judge Engoron is in a position to take all of that away. And I don't think there's any question it's going to happen. And it's going to happen. Well, he said he was going to try to come up with an answer by the end of January, and it's January 26th right now. So we could be
Mhm.
4 or 5 days away from Donald Trump being a broke ass bitch.
Yeah, I'm hoping for that. I'd love to. That'll push him over the edge.
It
That'll.
will.
That's the one. He'll be talking about strawberries and rolling those ball bearings before you know it.
Well, and that's what
Well,
I'm saying that's going to be the cause of the actual big implosion that you're waiting on.
Yeah. And that, it doesn't have to be a stroke. It just has to be, you see the panic in his eyes and the crumble. I'm waiting for the crumble.
Well, and he's so much in front of the cameras these days. It's conceivable. You get a guy who's going on 78, who has some emotional issues, has some mental acuity problems, has some physical problems. I mean, he stands at a 45-degree angle. He has a pad that keeps him upright when he's giving talks. It's inevitable. Something tragic's going to happen in full sight of the public. And that is going to be devastating for Donald Trump. Not even because his supporters would hate him for it, but it would fuck with his head so much. I mean, that's the one thing about narcissists. They got so much going in their head. They're trying to build themselves up. They're trying to game the situation. They're juggling all these fucking things to maintain the perception they think they give to people. And there's just too much shit now. No normal human being with normal intelligence could handle it. And he's none of those things.
No, and this is the thing that people forget. Trump is actually stupid. He is ignorant. He is the most ignorant person who's ever been behind a microphone as a politician. Just a couple of weeks ago, he was going how he had figured out that the abbreviation for the United States, U.S., also is us, and how brilliant that was for him to come up with that, and how they'll never give him credit for coming up with that. You come up with something genius, he says, and they don't give you credit because has anybody ever thought of that before? I don't think so. I mean, he actually said that.
Well, it's like the whole "Make America Great Again." He thinks he dreamt that up, but wasn't that Ronald Reagan?
That and good Lord, it's been around forever. I mean, it's the idea is that he has no idea when was it great. Ask him when exactly was it great, Donald or Ronnie. When was it? Was it 1950s when minorities weren't allowed to vote or work in stores? Or was that when America was great and women had to get their husband's permission to get a loan? Was that when it was great, Ronnie? Or or Donnie? Was that it? No.
We've come a long way because I need to get my wife's permission to get pudding out of the refrigerator. So
there you go. And at our age, pudding is a very important thing.
When you're 20 years old, you're looking at clubs and dancing and girls and porn and shit like this. When you're in your 60s or 70s, give me some fucking pudding and I'm set. I'm fucking set. You don't have to chew it. It's sweet. It's got every possible thing going your way.
And now I'm going to take a nap.
Yeah, exactly. I took a nap the other day. I don't usually take naps, and I laid down on the bed because my wife was watching something. I didn't want to watch it. 2 hours later, I wake up and I go, "Honey, I took a nap." She goes, "Yeah, I know you did. You're going to be doing that a lot more. You're up till 2 a.m, doing the podcast, and then in the morning." But if I get up at 9 a.m, that sounds, oh God, he's sleeping in. But if I go to bed at 2, it's 7 hours of sleep. Fuck it. Who cares? I don't have to be anywhere except doing TikToks and podcasts. You're fucking way busier than I am.
Well, I use a CPAP now. I don't know if you do or not. If you don't. You will. Yeah. But I finally got it down. I've got an app on my phone that tells me how well I did, and I'm getting 97s and 100s now. So I'm sleeping really good, which is great. But still, most of my naps are very inadvertent. I sit down, I start watching something, and before you know it, it's
yeah, exactly. Well,
my wife's poking me.
My doctor said you could probably use the CPAP, but you're going to have to stop the thumb-thucking before we do that. So.
Yeah.
So what can I say?
It took me a while. It took me a while to get used to it, but I think I got it. I think I got it nailed now. I'm getting, like I say, 97s and 100s.
Really, and so I bet that's really enhancing the love life with the mask and the and the Briggs and Stratton machine by the bed going off. Honey, come here. I'm feeling a little frisky. Let me turn down the CPAP a little bit so you can hear me talk.
Well, fortunately, my wife finds Hannibal Lecter sexy, so
Wow.
I'm covered. I'm covered.
Wow. Wow. She's not home today, right?
No,
I had a
yes,
feeling.
of course she is. Yes,
You wouldn't be talking this shit if she
she's
was home.
she's cultivating her succulents at the moment.
Wow. That sounds a little dirty in its own right. Doesn't
No,
it?
she's really into it. I mean, she's got this whole greenhouse full of succulents. It's amazing.
Now here's the thing is, if we had Republicans listening to this show and we don't, we'd have to
Yeah.
explain what succulents are. Otherwise, they
Yes,
try to ban us for sexual talk.
it's true. Yeah. They're cacti, basically, miniature cacti.
Okay, there you go. There you go. Just tell us. Don't tease us, for God's sake. All right. We're going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast. I think between now and the next time we talk, some shit is going to go down. So I'm looking forward to talking to you again when that all happens. Thank you for coming on and making my life a little easier today.
You bet. That's what I live for.
Now I got to give me some succulents, and you got your fucking fake. You know, the fucking thing about it is,
Yes.
if you had any creativity and any motivation at all, you'd go to a Burger King and get one of their pre-made fucking. But no, you got to sit there with a felt tip pen and make your own goofy fucking crown.
Yep.
I don't.
It's see, it's art. It's art, you see.
Yeah,
You know?
it's art.
I
It's
mean,
art.
a Burger King crown would be artifice. This is true art. I mean, it's an expression of my inner workings.
And if there was ever a sign when we've come to the end and need to stop this would be it. Ed's crown. And so for those of you listening, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to do that. I hope you have a great day, and we will talk to you again tomorrow.